The Blink Chronicles, Glasgow's Last Stand. You've heard the names, the Krays, the Richardsons, but in the north, there was a different breed. We're talking about a man who didn't just survive the Glasgow ice cream wars and the reign of the Godfather, he thrived in the middle of it. They call him Blink. Why? Because in his world, if you closed your eyes for a second, you were either bleeding or behind bars. This is the full, uncut story of Ian MacDonald. Glasgow in the 60s and 70s wasn't a postcard. It was a battlefield of tenements and shipyards. Ian MacDonald wasn't born into wealth. He was born into a city where your reputation was your only currency. If you couldn't fight, you didn't eat. Ian learned early that being hard wasn't enough. You had to be faster than the next man. The name wasn't a term of endearment. It was a warning. In the pubs of the East End, the word was that Ian was so quick with a blade or his fists that his opponents would blink, and the fight was already over. He wasn't a giant of a man, but he had the madness in his eyes that made bigger men step aside. You can't talk about Glasgow crime without Arthur Thompson. The Godfather ran the city with an iron fist and a fleet of hitmen. He saw potential in young Ian. Most men would have crawled through glass to be Thompson's right hand. Ian? He looked the Godfather in the eye and said, no. He wanted his own firm. He wanted his own name. Going solo in a city owned by families is a suicide mission. Ian started small: protection, debt collection, and taxing those who thought they were untouchable. He was building a crew of young teams who didn't care about the old rules. By the early 90s, the street-level graft wasn't enough. Ian wanted the big one. He heard about a security setup in Torquay. £6 million. That's never work again money. That's buy the Caribbean money. The plan was set. It was supposed to be in and out. Professional. But in the world of high-stakes robbery, the plan usually dies the moment you mask up. The bank staff didn't follow the script. The adrenaline was too high. During the heist, a teller was shot in the head. It wasn't part of the plan. Blood on the floor changes a robbery into a manhunt. The clean getaway turned into a desperate scramble. The police weren't just looking for thieves anymore, they were looking for shooters. Ian headed for Glasgow Airport. He thought he could disappear into the Spanish sun. He was on the plane, the engines were humming, and he thought he was home free. Then the doors opened. The blink luck had run out. The police grounded the entire flight just to drag him off. The judge didn't see a character. He saw a menace. 16 years. In the Scottish legal system back then, that was a lifetime. Ian didn't flinch. He took it like a man who knew the risks of the game he played. Barlinnie Prison. The Big Hoose. It's where Glasgow's worst go to break. For Ian, it was just another office. He entered the halls already a legend for the Torquay job. Inside, Ian met Michael Peterson, better known as Charles Bronson, the UK's most violent prisoner. The two hit it off. Why? Because they both respected the old-school code. No grassing, no backing down. Ian didn't just stay in Scotland. He moved through the English high-security estate. He rubbed shoulders with the remnants of the Kray firm. He was learning how the London boys did business, adding their polish to his Glasgow grit. Prison isn't all fights and drama. It's the slow rot. Ian spent years in a cell, watching the world change outside. Cell phones were becoming a thing. The internet was born. He was a 20th century gangster waiting for a 21st century world. When the gates finally opened, the city Ian left was gone. The old gangs were fragmented. Drugs had taken over the traditional protection rackets. But the name, Blink, still carried weight. Ian didn't come back to hide. He bought a black Mercedes and the most arrogant plate in Scotland, B1 LNK. It was a rolling middle finger to the police and his rivals. I'm back, and I'm not hiding. The plate made him an easy target. In 2009, rivals decided to send a message. His car was firebombed. Ian didn't go to the police. That's not how he plays. He just got a new car. The escalation continued. A viable gas bomb was found under his car while he was filming a documentary with Danny Dyer. Think about that. The man is so active that the camera crew is literally running for their lives while he's just annoyed about the damage to his ride. Ian was nearly killed in a targeted attack near the Kelvingrove Art Gallery. He was slashed across the throat. Most men die from that. Ian walked away. He became the unkillable man of Glasgow. The tabloids started calling him a dead man walking. There was a green light on him from various factions. But Ian stayed in the city. He didn't flee to the Costa del Sol. He stayed on his home turf. Eventually, even Ian realized the B1 LNK plate was more trouble than it was worth. He sold it for over 20 grand. It was the end of an era. The flashy gangster was evolving into something else. Ian realized people wanted to hear his story. He wrote Blink. It wasn't a ghost-written puff piece, it was raw. It detailed the stabbings, the robberies, and the regrets. Then came the Blink and You'll Miss It podcast. Ian found a new weapon, a microphone. He started calling out the pretenders and the rats. In a world of fake gangsters on social media, the real deal had arrived. His appearances on Sean Atwood's channel brought him to a global audience. People in America and Australia were suddenly fascinated by this Scotsman who spoke a different language of violence and honor. Not everyone liked the podcast. Old feuds were reignited. When you talk about the past, you open old wounds. Ian didn't care. He was used to having a target on his back. Ian often talks about the game. He doesn't glamorize it as much as he explains the mechanics of it. You live by the sword, you get cut. He's been cut more than most, but he's still standing. Behind the Blink persona is a man who cares deeply about his family. He's tried to keep his children away from the line of fire. It's the classic gangster's dilemma. His second book solidified his status. He wasn't just a street fighter, he was one of the last great British bank robbers. A dying breed in an age of digital theft and cybercrime. Today, Ian is a media personality. He does meet and greets. He sells merchandise. He's turned his notoriety into a brand. It's the ultimate get out for a man who should have been dead decades ago. So, who is Ian Blink MacDonald? A villain? A victim of his environment? A survivor? He's all of them. He's a living museum of a Glasgow that doesn't exist anymore. There are things Ian will never say on camera. The bodies that were never found, the deals made in the shadows. We only know what he wants us to know. Despite the books and the podcasts, Ian still holds on to the code. He won't name names that aren't already public. He won't put work on the street. That's the difference between a storyteller and a grass. In his later years, Ian has become a voice of warning. He tells the young teams that the road only ends in two places, the graveyard or the Barlinnie. He's lived both without dying. Even retired, the police keep a close eye on him. To the authorities, a man like Blink never truly changes. Every time he sneezes, there's a surveillance van around the corner. He's paved the way for other Scottish figures to tell their stories. He broke the seal on the Glasgow underworld's secrets. 16 years in a cage. Scars on his face. Friends in the ground. Ian is honest about the price. Was the £6 million dream worth it? He lets the viewer decide. He's older now. The pace is slower. But the eyes are the same. He still scans the room. He still sits with his back to the wall. You can take the man out of the gangland, but you can't take the gangland out of the man. Don't blink. That's his sign-off. It's not just a catchphrase. It's a lifestyle.